I was made a state warden by the court, sent to an institution when I was 12. There was always the constant threat of violence, and violence was quite common in and of itself, either perpetrated by the boys or the staff or both. Police never came in to investigate anything. Mount Eden Prison is massively different to a boys' home security unit. It's a whole different kettle of fish.
All that talk to my gang pull up, and we pull up and they all dip.
Dear Heavenly Father, please watch over me and the brother here and speak through us, and watch over everybody watching right now. In Jesus' name, Amen.
Amen.
All right, my brother, so what's your name and where are you from?
Well, my name is Allan Adams and I'm originally from Auckland, but I've been living down in Wellington now for over a year or so, yeah.
So an Auckland boy at heart.
Yeah, don't hold it. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, bro, welcome to the show, brother. How's your day going anyway?
Oh, cool. Just kicking back at home, and it's wet and cold outside. So
yeah, how lucky are we? How lucky are we, man? It's pretty cold and wet out here in Auckland too, my bro. But yeah, man. So this is Allan Adams here, man. So big appreciation, bro, for taking some time out of your day, bro, to jump on the show, man. The brother here's got an awesome story to tell. Well, not an awesome story. Well, in the end, you know what I mean. He's gonna go coming out on top, man. So that's the most important part. But the brother actually has written a book on his life, which includes, decades behind bars, unfortunately. As you'll come to see, the brother here actually has over 400 criminal convictions that he's been done in the court with. He's labelled as, one of New Zealand's most prolific burglars. That's the label anyway in the media, but we know how they are. But the brother actually also has a story, coming through state care, first-hand witness to the abuses and the atrocities that happen inside of those places, which often leads people to a life of crime. Currently in New Zealand, there's a Royal Commission going on about abuse in state care, so see how that turns out, but it's definitely no surprise to brothers like Allan here and many other people that's been on this show that a lot of people have been let down by the state, unfortunately, and Allan can testify to that. And you've written a book now, haven't you, brother?
Yes, I have. Yeah, took me. Well, my last prison sentence was I served 6 years. My 6-year sentence at Rimutaka Prison, and for about 3 years of that, I spent writing my book as actually part of my ACC-funded counselling. It was all part of a therapeutic process that I went through.
And as you'll also come to see, he's actually had a bit of trouble publishing that book as well. So there are powers that be in the world that don't really want this sort of stuff coming out, man, especially, some of the things that the brother here has been through himself, including sexual abuse, things that he's witnessed in there. Obviously to people that have viewed the show, people don't just choose a life of crime. You know what I mean? There's a lot of backstory to it, a lot of which the public doesn't see, which is very unfortunate. But we're fighting the good fight, man, and we're getting it out there. And there's definitely a shift in the air, bro, which is very good to see, in regards to this whole system and the how it is basically corrupt to the core. So yeah, brother, I mean, I guess to start us off with, my bro, so born in Auckland, was it, bro? So grew up in Auckland, and then how did that sort of go for you,
Well, like a lot of kids, I grew up in quite a violent family environment. Alcohol and drugs and physical abuse were quite common. Of course, I had difficulties at school as well, and by the time I was 12, I was just an angry kid, really. There were things that I didn't understand, but, I was quite angry, and I ended up taking my anger out on my school, which was unfair, but at the time, in my 12-year-old brain, I decided that if I burnt my school down, I wouldn't have to go there again because I hated the place so much. Whether that all that hate was correctly directed or not, yeah. But that's basically how I entered state care. I was made a state ward by the court, and sent to an institution when I was 12. I got taken away from my family immediately, and put into an institution called Wesleydale Boys Home in Mount Loskill in Auckland. So that was for boys 13 and under. It was a short stay, what you would term a remand institution or a short stay institution.
So how was that, man, walking into there, being with those other kids, man? Like, how many other kids were there? And
at the time, about 30 to 40 kids.
Living there, like being on remand there?
Yep, for various reasons. We were all, the thing was that we were all there for different reasons. Like some kids were there like me. They were sent by the court, or they were there for their own protection, or they come from bad families themselves, which is a common factor, amongst most of the kids there. None of us came from ideal home lives, but in hindsight, none of us deserved to be put in the way of harm that we were. You soon learn it's a massive culture shock. Like when you go into an institution, it's like you enter a whole new world. It's not with new rules. Like from day to day, there was always the constant threat of violence, and violence was quite common in and of itself, either perpetrated by the boys or the staff or both. And of course, although my first stay in Wesleydale Boys Home, I didn't encounter any pedophiles. There were certainly things that occurred in there that, in hindsight, clearly there were pedophiles working in there. So usually, like for instance, probably the hardest thing for me when I first went there was just learning the ropes, how to survive in there, and yeah, but probably the worst, probably one of the first things I noticed was we had to go and you had to have communal showers. So what would happen then was that all the boys would sort of line up outside the bathroom just in their towels and stuff, and there would be one staff member, a male staff member, standing where he could watch all the boys showering. And some of the staff members, let's just say they looked a bit too, they were eyeing us up. It was like, it's pretty. If I think about it now, it was all pretty predatory. I mean, I only encountered, like, my first day, I stayed in Wesleydale for about a month when I was 12, and for that time, I had, there was violence that was perpetrated against me that was instigated by a staff member simply because they didn't like me. So a staff member took me and another boy down to the gym. I assumed for cleaning the gym, but it was really so the staff could watch while the other boy attacked me pretty much. And so but those things were pretty standard. But it was usually, when I look back now, it was usually the most vulnerable kids who were preyed upon by the pedophiles or who became targets.
Man, well, so after staying in that institution, bro, what sort of happened from there?
Well, surprisingly, and to be well balanced, all of my second placement was, and by this, and I still actually wasn't officially a state ward at this time. I was still on remand, the equivalent to being remanded in prison in custody. This is for children. So my second placement was much better. And I mean, I could paint a biased black picture of everything that happened to me in state care, but I won't. And basically, what happened there, I didn't go to school. At about 5 o'clock every morning, I'd get up, and my foster father, Bruce, he drove a logging truck in the Woodhill Forest and had a waste thinning contract there. So or production thinning. They'd thin out the trees. But basically, every day while I was there, Monday to Friday, I would go with Bruce. I would basically be in the logging truck with him all day, which was cool. I mean, I was a 12-year-old boy, and I was surrounded by trucks, heavy machinery, and I was out in the bush, and Bruce was a really cool guy, I have to admit. And if I'd been allowed to stay there, on a more permanent basis, I mean, I'd inadvertently been provided by the system with what I needed, and basically, I just needed to be in a home surrounded by love, not necessarily like I didn't expect. Obviously, they didn't love me, but they did care for me very much, and just the fact that I was in a loving family, and I was surrounded by love was exactly what I needed as a kid.
Well, so how was it when you were taken from that family, bro?
I remember the day. Actually, I remember the day. I knew it was coming. I knew where I was going.
How old were you at this point, bro?
Still 12.
Still 12.
I'd only ended up being in that foster placement for 2 months. And on the day that my social worker came to get me, to escort me down to Napier, she said to me, she asked the question. It was like, "Do you want to go?" And I was like put on the spot, not because it was a difficult question to answer, because the truth would have been no. If I'd said the truth, I would have said, "No, I don't want to go. I want to stay here." But I already knew that I was going. And in my 12-year-old brain, this was just like being in an institution, really. This was a staff member asking me a question, and I had to give the right answer, or else things would get worse for me. So I had to think. I paused and I thought, and what's the right answer? And then I figured it out. The right answer was for me to tell my social worker that I want to go. So that's what I did. If I'd said to my social worker that I didn't want to go, when I got to Beck House, I would have immediately been labelled as anti, and I would have come under a bit of special attention from the staff. They would have been, So you just you had no power. You had no choice. You just went where they put you. And supposedly, the institution that I was going to, Beck House, was designed for children with what they termed behavioural difficulties or emotional disturbances. Basically, kids had been abused somewhere else, dealing with the after effects of it. So supposedly they were supposed to help us at this institution, but I got no help there. To be fair, none of the staff were, as I later found out, trained in any particular way to help anyone anyway. So Beck House. that's...
So that's where it got pretty dark, was it, brother? And so that's located in the Hawke's Bay.
Hawke's Bay, yep.
So how was that, bro, walking in there, brother? How was it walking into that place?
not as bad as when I first walked into Wesleydale, because when I first walked into Wesleydale, I had no idea. I was totally green. When I first walked into Beck House, there were a few boys from Wesleydale who were there as well, who'd gone there earlier, and it was good. And I was sort of greeted like an old friend. They were like, "Where have you been?" and all of this. And I mean, the other boys were, I was not so green now, so I knew what to expect, and I had a fair idea, what was going on. I knew what was going on. I didn't know, and no one helped you out. There was no induction. There was no when you first walked into an institution, they didn't tell you anything. Basically, all I was told in Wesleydale when I first walked in the door, after my strip search and my thing, I was told to stand on this mat in front of his desk in the duty office in Wesleydale, and all the staff looked up at me and write something down on this huge book, and then all I was told was, "Oh, you'll do what you're told, or else." That was it.
Bro, that's horrific, brother. That is crazy.
These are children, and yeah, I mean, there are things that are common with all institutions, like inherently they're loveless places, cold places. Yeah, in the 5 institutions I was in, I ended up being in, I had 3 encounters with 3 different pedophiles, unfortunately, and that was by far harder for me to cope with than the violence and the threat of violence. I mean, these things are hard, but I would have rather been given a hiding than, fall victim to a pedophile. So, yeah. But of course, there was something else about Beck House that was different to Wesleydale. They had what was called the modern term is a seclusion room, but back in the day it was simply the time-out room. And this is where they would take you and they'd lock you into this room, and all the seclusion room or time-out room in Beck House was that there was like a garage for the institution's van, and in the same building, like half of the garage was the time-out room, so it was separate from the main institution buildings. It was sort of across the drive, and all that was in this room was basically varnished chipboard walls, and floor, and like the top third of the time-out room was painted pink. It was supposed to calm you down. Don't think it really did that. And often the staff would go to, like, if a kid resisted going to the time-out room, I mean, I can remember kids being dragged by their hair in there, dragged along the ground. Of course, we didn't really get to see what happened inside the time-out room, but all the kids knew when someone was getting taken there. The room stunk of urine, it was cold. Half the time the light in there didn't work, so it was pretty dark. Yeah, I remember the day. I remember it. There was the staff decided it would be a good idea that they have a celebration every time a boy got to go home. So there was like a special meal, and everyone went into the dining room, and all the staff were there. And I was by this time I was quite anti about the whole thing, and my thought process was, why the f does he get a party just because he gets to go home? So I quite calmly I just turned around and said, "Oh, spooch," and I wasn't causing a ruckus or anything, but the senior social worker decided to put me in a time-out room for that. I was spoiling the day. And while all the kids and all the staff were in the dining room, he took me to the timeout room, and the way he took me, he literally lifted me off my feet and, half dragged me in there. And I wasn't fighting or resisting, because by this time I knew what the timeout room was all about. He took me in there, and I was just expecting him to lock the door and go like normal. But he stood sort of with the door half open, sort of looking back towards the institution and watching me at the same time. And then I was just standing there, and then in the room, and then he told me to strip. And of course, I didn't question it, because when the staff told you to do something, you just did it. By this time, I was absolutely terrified. I froze to the spot. I couldn't even speak. And then, obviously, all that was going through my mind the whole time, was no. I was going no in my head, but I was so terrified that I couldn't speak. I was just frozen to the spot. In the moment I didn't actually know what was going to happen until it happened. But when it happened, I knew what was happening. I remember afterwards, it was, I was by far the most terrifying experience of my life. It went beyond I didn't have the emotional capacity to deal with it. I only stayed at Beck House for a month after that. I'd been there for about a year and a half already. So as I said, in those places, they pick their targets, and then they, given the opportunity and the correct target, they'll. The last month in Beck House, I have very little memories of it. Even today, even now, it's one patch in my life where there is literally no memory of it. It's a blank.
Well, brother, can you touch on it all? Sorry, just to fast forward a little bit, bro. So you've gotten compensation and things like that, bro. So have they sort of been able to track that bloke down, bro? Or
yes, yeah. This particular person, Vivian Mule, I know that of 2 other boys who have laid complaints with the police against him, and of 5 other boys who have not gone as far as laying a complaint against him, but have made a claim through the Ministry of Social Development for compensation because of something that he did to them. And they're all of the same nature. They're all of, the same nature.
And these are just the people that have spoken up, obviously.
Only the ones that have that have taken the hard step of going forward, And it is a hard step, and I fully understand why a lot of people don't. It's really hard. But what's driving me is that coming out with my story is that really the best thing is to prevent children from getting hurt in the first place. And it's in my view, if the safer our children are, the safer our society will be.
That's brother, 100%, my bro. I mean, that's definitely something we preach, man, on the show, brother. You know what I mean? It's definitely what you've just said there. You know what I mean? To people that have watched the show, mate, just so many people, suffered at the hands of the state. And unfortunately, bro, they create the criminals, you know what I mean? And then they offer us the solutions through prisons and things like that to problems that they've started in the first place, man. You know what I mean? So it's insane, man. I mean, bro, so was that guy prosecuted at all, or?
No. The official reason from the letter that I've had from the police is that due to the credibility issues of the complainants, they are not going to take any action. Taking a deeper look into my offending and what, that made me realise that when I did a burglary, it made me feel in control. It put me in control. It gave me power. I felt empowered by what I was doing. And from a rape victim where I felt powerless, and that powerlessness was ingrained into me. I was just, the fear. I've been through everything. I've had to deal. I've carried a massive load of fear, and that for a very long time. And for me to let go of that has also meant that I've been able to let go of my anger. I've been able to let go of my depression, all of the things that stem from that, all of that stuff. And the counselling has just helped me to let go of it. I'm poor. I don't have much money, but I'm not going out to do a burglary just because I don't have much money. I'm not doing a burglary anymore because I've let go of the primary reasons behind my offending. All those years, I was only capable of dealing with what was immediately in front of me, and that was it. And sometimes I didn't even deal with that very well,
Yeah. I mean, brother, you've come a long way, man. It's inspiring, my bro. And again, you touch on this in your book, brother. Well, if you don't mind, bro, I also will leave, a way to contact you through your email if you're comfortable with that, bro. Just for anyone that's wanting to reach out to the brother here, any publishers or anything like that. Any sort of social workers that want to reach out, they can definitely contact you through there. So I'll leave that in the description and the comments. And bro, just hearing that, it just makes me think as well of, just the whole way that the criminal justice system works, bro. You know what I mean? Like to me, people going inside for, agburgs, armed robbery, awful though those crimes are, it'll never make sense to me that someone going in for armed robbery or agburg will get longer than a pedophile. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that just makes no sense, mate. A pedophile should be getting twice as long as an armed robber, mate. Should be getting twice as long as anybody going in for those sorts of things, bro, because they destroy lives, mate. You know what I mean? 20, 30 years it takes to come back from the damage that a pedophile has done, bro. You know what I mean? So it makes no sense to me that people in for those sort of crimes get longer than what a pedophile gets, bro. They should get twice, if not 3 times as long as most of these other crimes, man. It's just insane, brother.
Yeah, you're right. And we're often in prison, we would be talking about that. Why the f, and often it was a point of anger. And I mean, main thing that I noticed in prison, like, in my last couple of years there, like after I let go of all my shit, was the fact that I saw the other boys around me in a different way. I noticed all the anger, depending on how big that baggage is or how negatively it affects you. The best way is just to let go of it. But of course, and that can be hard. Letting go is hard. It was hard for me. I mean, I found I had a medium through my writing which I used to help me let go. But I think for everyone, it's a hard thing to do, but it's worthwhile. And by far, letting go of all of that I carried for so long has been the most worthwhile thing that I've done in my life. Now I'm not going back to jail, and I mean, people can go, oh yeah, you have all these convictions, and oh yeah, sure, right, you're not going back to jail, but I'm not, and I know this now.
Yeah. 100%. Only onward and upward from here, brother. You know, the journey begins, my bro. You know, once you know, the journey's just beginning from here, brother. Well, you know, from here, bro. Do you mind touching at all, you know what I mean, of your time in jail, bro, and over the years, bro, how that sort of was, man?
My first sentence was probably my hardest. I just turned 16 and I was in the Oalaka Boys Home Secure Unit. And it was my first appearance in a district court, so I got escorted to the Auckland District Court. And everyone thought, oh, you're going to get corrective training. I was expecting 3 months corrective training. But the judge turned around and gave me 12 months imprisonment. And I remember how shattered I felt. And it was like, but the boys' home, the Mount Eden prison is is massively different to a boys' home secure unit. It's a whole different kettle of fish. You know, it's like you're green all over again. You know, and it's the prison environment, harder. Much harder.
How was that, man, walking into there, bro?
Intimidating, very, I wouldn't say frightening, but I would say, just intimidating. You walk into Mount Eden, that big steel door slides open and the van drives in and slides shut. All you're seeing is these like tall stone walls, stone buildings, very cold, very forbidding. And for me, when I was 16, it was like going into the boys' home for the first time. I had no clue. And after about a month, I just slipped into a really deep despair. It was like I ended up seeing myself as a freak and a monster, and all of these things had happened to me because I was a freak and a monster. It was my fault, and I didn't want to be around anymore. I decided at 16 that I wanted to be dead. I prefer to be dead. And that was my first, I made a very serious suicide attempt. Almost succeeded. When I was pulled out of my cell at night, I was unconscious. You know, I only remember regaining consciousness outside the cell.
Like, did you have to watch out for predators in prison as well, bro? Was it like that as well? Or?
Yes, especially during my first prison sentence. Yes, this was the last time that anyone ever managed to force anyone sexually upon me. But let's just say that after that event that happened to me in Waikilia prison on the same sentence, I was transferred down there later because Waikilia was called Waikilia Youth Institution at the time, which was basically, it used to be a borstal, but they just called the borstal something else, but it was still a borstal pretty much. So, unfortunately I was put in a dangerous situation in Waikilia prison, and an older prisoner raped me as well. And threatened to kill me if I told anyone. But from that point onwards, I learned how to keep myself safe in jail. You know, not to. I hardened up. I had to.
Had to, bro. You had to.
But from that point on, my life has followed a very similar pattern. It's gone from, my pattern was I'd get out, I'd be reoffending within a month. Then I'd go back to prison, and honestly, I wasn't even capable of caring. Once I learned how to survive in prison, it wasn't really a deterrent at all for me. It was, like for many, many years on the outside and in prison, I viewed everyone as a potential threat to me. You know, And that's how I saw other people, which enabled me to rob them, because I would justify myself by saying, oh, yeah, I'm only burglaring business premises and the insurance company will pay for it and no one's actually living there, so it's not that bad. But, I'd use all of those things to justify what I've done to make myself feel better. But, yeah, it's how I view people that enabled that. They were just potential threats.
Oh yeah, 100%, my bro, 100%. It's, bro, after your story, man, of what you've just shared, bro, it's beautiful just to see you having a smile on your face, bro. You know what I mean? And having that attitude, bro, of wanting to give back and man and change things. I mean, well, we're actually coming to the end here now, brother. So I mean, what is the name of that book, my bro? What's going to be the name of it?
Oh, well, I've titled it. It's simply called Damaged. I've called it Damaged. I got it down to 2 titles. I didn't think of a title till after I'd written it, but I came down to Into Darkness or Damaged. So I decided to call the book Damaged, and call one of my chapters Into Darkness. So,
well done, bro. I mean, bro, look out for that, family. Look out for that book, man. Hopefully it's going to be a next bestseller, man, because with the whole Royal Commission that's going on at the moment, man, this is a book that definitely needs to get out there, my bro. So again, the brother here's actually been having a bit of trouble publishing this book. He is going to put it out anyway. He's learning about the ebooks and putting it out that way. But yeah, if anyone does sort of know any publishers and or anything like that, man, definitely, again, I'll leave the brother's contact details. I'll leave his email in the description and the comments. So yeah, feel free to shoot him a message. I'm sure he'll be glad to hear from you. And that's anyone, anyone wanting to reach out to the brother here, definitely do that. But brother, thank you for sharing a bit of your story, bro. You know what I mean? And I'm looking forward to that book, bro, and being able to read that. And bro, if I'm ever in Wellington, man, we'll definitely be catching up for a coffee, my brother.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I live out of Miramar. It's quite nice out here. Right out by the airport. You don't have far to go if you're flying down.
Nice. Yeah, I know Miramar, brother, for sure. Yeah, well, most definitely, man. I'll pop in and say hello, man. But until then, my brother, much love, man, much respect, and we'll talk soon anyway, my brother.
Cool, for sure. It's been good talking to you, and I hope things, get better. I'm sick. Part of it is like, I've hurt so many people for so long, and now I want to do the opposite. And this is just,
Yeah, 100%.
help people. I don't want to hurt them, and that's where I'm at.
Beautiful, my brother. All right, man. Well, peace, bro, and we'll talk soon.
All good, Dave. We'll catch up later, brother.